Your skin just did something, and you never gave it permission. A wave of tiny bumps rolled up your arms, the little hairs stood on end, and for a second you felt it everywhere. Maybe a cold wind touched you. Maybe a song hit one perfect note. Maybe nothing happened at all that you can point to. So what is your body actually trying to tell you? Because goosebumps are not random, and they are not new. They are one of the oldest reflexes you own, a signal your skin has been sending for millions of years. The strange part is that the reason it first appeared has almost nothing to do with the life you live now. Your body is running an ancient program on modern hardware. Right now, under your skin, a hidden set of muscles is waiting to fire. And once you see what they were built for, you will never read a chill the same way again. Starts with what a goosebump physically is, because it is stranger than it looks. Every single hair on your body grows out of a tiny pocket in the skin called a follicle. And attached to each follicle is a microscopic muscle with a long name, the erector pili. It is one of the smallest muscles you have, and you have millions of them, roughly one for every hair. When that muscle contracts, it pulls on the root of the hair and tugs it upright. The skin around the follicle bunches into a tiny dome. Multiply that by thousands of hairs at once, and you get a field of little bumps rising across your arm. That is all a goosebump really is. Not the hair doing something clever, but a muscle yanking the hair to attention. The bumpy texture even gave the reflex its name. To older eyes, plucked skin with raised follicles looked like the skin of a goose, so we called it goose skin, goose flesh, goosebumps. Doctors still use the formal term piloerection, which simply means standing hair. Here is the first odd thing. You did not decide to do any of this. You cannot usually flex these muscles the way you flex your hand. Something else reached in and pulled the trigger for you, faster than thought. So who or what is actually in control? The answer is a part of your nervous system you almost never notice. Your body runs two kinds of controls. One is voluntary, the wiring you use to lift a cup or wave a hand. The other is automatic, running quietly in the background, handling your heartbeat, your breathing, your sweat. That automatic side is called the autonomic nervous system, and one branch of it is the sympathetic nervous system, your built-in alarm. When that branch fires, it floods your body with a signal chemical called noradrenaline. This is the same system behind the classic fight-or-flight response. It speeds your heart, widens your pupils, and tightens those tiny erector pili muscles all at once. That is why goosebumps arrive in a sudden sheet, not one hair at a time. The order goes out everywhere together. And this is why you cannot simply will a goosebump into being. The button is wired to your alarm system, not your conscious mind. A few rare people can trigger it on command, but for almost everyone, it only fires when something flips that switch from the inside. Cold flips it. Fear flips it. A sudden, overwhelming feeling flips it. So your body has built a fast, automatic muscle reflex, spread across your entire skin, and handed the controls to its emergency system. That is a lot of machinery for a few bumps. Evolution does not pay for expensive reflexes that do nothing. So, what was it actually for? To understand goosebumps, picture yourself with one thing you have mostly lost: fur. A thick coat of hair, like the one your distant ancestors wore, and like the one almost every other mammal still wears today. Now run the same reflex on that furry body and watch what happens. When those tiny muscles contract, every hair stands straight up, and a coat of raised hair does something useful. It puffs outward and traps a thick layer of air close to the skin. That trapped air is the trick. Air is a poor conductor of heat, so a fluffed up coat works like a blanket, holding your warmth against your body instead of letting it escape into the cold. You have seen this exact move on a freezing morning. A bird on a wire doubles in size, fluffed into a ball. A cat by the window looks rounder in winter. They are not growing. They are raising their fur to build a wall of warm air. This is why cold is still one of your strongest goosebump triggers. Step into a cold shower or an icy wind, and the reflex fires instantly, trying to fluff a coat that is barely there. Your body is following an ancient instruction. Raise the fur, trap the heat, survive the cold. But that raises a question of its own. If fur was so useful, why did we ever lose it? The leading idea is about movement and heat. As early humans began walking and then running long distances under a blazing sun, a thick coat stopped being a gift and became a danger. It trapped too much heat during the chase. So our ancestors traded the coat for bare skin and millions of sweat glands, the best cooling system in the animal world. We became runners who could shed heat and outlast almost any prey. The fur went. The reflex to raise it never got the message. It is a beautiful system. The only problem is that it was written for a body covered in dense hair. And somewhere along the way, your ancestors lost most of that coat. We will come back to what that means. But heat was only half of the job. The other half was about looking dangerous. The second job of raised fur has nothing to do with temperature. It is a bluff. Imagine a cornered animal facing a predator. It cannot suddenly grow muscles or teeth, but it can change its outline in an instant. By raising every hair on its body, it puffs up and looks larger, taller, and more threatening than it really is. Size is one of the oldest languages in the animal world. Bigger often means do not start a fight. You have watched this happen. A startled cat arches its back and its tail balloons into a bottle brush. A dog raises a ridge of hair along its spine, what owners call its hackles going up. A porcupine lifts its quills. All of it is the same reflex you carry, the sympathetic alarm firing and the erector pili muscles standing every hair on end. It is a free, instant way to seem more dangerous without throwing a single blow. And this is why fear, not just cold, gives you goosebumps. A horror film, a sudden scream, a creak in a dark house. Your alarm system cannot tell the difference between a movie monster and a real one. It fires the ancient display. Trying to puff up a coat, you no longer have to scare off a threat that is not really there. So now you have two ancient purposes wired into one reflex. Trap heat against the cold and swell up against danger. Both were genuinely useful once. Both depended on a thick coat of fur. Which raises the obvious question. What happens to this whole system when the fur is gone? Here is the twist at the center of the story. For you, goosebumps barely work anymore. Somewhere across human evolution, your ancestors traded their thick coat for mostly bare skin. The fine hairs you have left are too thin and too sparse to trap a meaningful layer of warm air. So when cold makes your skin pebble up, you get almost no extra heat from it. And when fear raises your hairs, no predator sees a bigger, scarier you. The display fires into an empty room. This makes the human goosebump a near-perfect example of something biologists call a vestigial trait, a leftover, a piece of machinery built for an older body that we kept long after its job disappeared. The wiring survived. The fur did not. So the reflex still fires faithfully, doing almost nothing. And goosebumps are not your only leftover. You are carrying a whole quiet museum of them. The little muscles some people use to wiggle their ears once swiveled them toward distant sounds. The small bone at the base of your spine, the tailbone, is the stub of a tail your ancestors balanced with. Wisdom teeth crowd a jaw that used to be larger and longer. Each one is a part kept long after its purpose faded. Goosebumps belong to this same family of echoes, ancient solutions to problems you will never actually face. Think about what that really means. Every time your arm prickles in the cold, you are watching a ghost, a reflex performing for a coat that vanished hundreds of thousands of years ago. Your body never got the memo that the fur is gone. It still raises hairs that cannot keep you warm and cannot make you look fierce. And yet the reflex did not just fade away into pointlessness. Something unexpected happened on the way. The same triggers that once meant cold and danger got tangled up with something far stranger and far more human. Because there is one trigger we have not explained yet. Cold, fear, and then this, a single piece of music with no threat in it at all. This is the goosebump that makes no evolutionary sense, and it might be the most human thing your skin does. A song swells, a voice cracks on a high note, a film reaches its peak, and suddenly a wave rolls up your neck and down your arms. No cold, no danger. Scientists have a name for this musical shiver. They call it frisson, and it is genuine piloerection, the very same reflex, fired by emotion instead of temperature or fear. Why would a survival reflex answer to a melody? The leading idea points to your brain's reward system. A powerful, surprising moment in music can trigger a release of dopamine, the same chemical tied to pleasure and craving. Brain scans show that the peak of a musical chill lights up the same reward circuits as food or other deep pleasures. Your old alarm system seems to get swept up in that emotional surge and fires the ancient response. And not everyone feels these chills the same way. Research suggests that people who score high on a personality trait called openness to experience, the deep listeners and daydreamers, get frisson far more often than others. The other key is surprise. The chill almost always lands on a moment you did not see coming. A note that breaks the pattern. A voice that suddenly soars. A silence that snaps into sound. Music that is too predictable rarely moves the skin at all. Your body answers. The instant expectation shatters into something larger than you expected. There may be a deeper logic too. That sympathetic branch reacts to anything intense and significant, anything that says, "Pay attention, this matters." For most of history that meant a threat. But your brain can read a soaring song, a wave of awe, or a rush of nostalgia as just as significant. The body reaches for its oldest signal of meaning, and your skin answers. So the chill you feel at your favorite song is a survival reflex, repurposed for beauty. The same muscles that once fluffed fur against the cold now rise for a chord change. It is strange and a little wonderful. But the reflex still had one last secret to give up, and modern science only found it a few years ago. For a long time, goosebumps looked like a closed case, an old reflex, mostly useless, fun to explain. Then, in 2020, a team of researchers studying the skin found something nobody expected. They looked closely at that tiny erector pili muscle, the one that raises your hair, and traced what it is connected to. It does not just link a nerve to a hair. It physically bridges the sympathetic nerve to the stem cells that sit at the base of each follicle, the cells that grow new hair. The work was done in mice and published in the journal Cell. But the wiring it revealed runs through mammals broadly, including us. What made it striking was the double role hidden in one tiny structure. The same little muscle that snaps a goosebump up in a heartbeat also serves, over much longer stretches, as a permanent bridge for a slow signal. One job is instant and visible, the other is patient and invisible. They are separated only by how long the cold lasts. That muscle holds the nerve and the stem cells together, like a clamp keeping two wires in contact. And the connection turned out to be active. Under normal conditions, the nerve gives a low, steady signal that keeps the stem cells on standby. But under sustained cold, the kind that fires goosebumps again and again, the nerve ramps up its signal. And that stronger signal nudges the stem cells to wake and begin growing new hair. So the very system behind goosebumps may also be a sensor that links the outside cold to hair growth on the inside. The short-term reaction is the bump you see. The long-term reaction, over weeks of cold, may be a thicker coat. Suddenly, the ancient logic clicks back into place. A body that feels lasting cold grows more hair to survive it. The reflex you thought was a useless leftover turned out to be the visible tip of a hidden conversation between your nerves, your muscles, and your skin. Goosebumps are not just a ghost after all. They are a small, ancient sensor, still quietly doing part of its old job. So here is the answer your skin was hiding. A goosebump is a tiny muscle pulling a hair upright on the order of your oldest alarm system, trying to warm a coat you no longer wear, or scare off a threat that is no longer there, and sometimes simply marking a moment too beautiful to ignore. An ancient reflex, running quietly inside a modern you. Next time, we stay with these strange automatic signals and ask another one you have felt 1,000 times. Why do you yawn? And why is it almost impossible to stop once someone near you starts? Your body is full of these little mysteries, hiding in plain sight. This was Doodle Anatomy.